A very good afternoon to everybody, and a warm welcome to the 125th edition of the Global Weather Report, live from Mark Hogan Weather HQ in Evanton, Rossshire. It's been an absolutely glorious winter's day here up in the north of the UK. I'm assuming there's been some sunshine in other parts of the UK as well. How's everybody doing on this fine Sunday afternoon? Let me know in the live chat, and I'll give you a shout out. I'll try and answer some questions. The usual drill. Be sure to hit that like button, and have you subscribed to the channel yet? Please do so if you haven't already and you're interested in all things weather. We'll look at the big picture as well as the localized picture here on the channel, looking at how different factors around the planet go into influencing the finer details of our weather. So that is something that I strive to do as unbiased, unhyped as possible. And yes, a very good afternoon to Valper from a big hug from Spain. A very good afternoon to you. It is good to see you on the live chat. I don't think I've seen your name before, so a very warm welcome and thanks for tuning in. We've got Paul James, the very first, as always, on the live chat. Good afternoon to you, Paul. Hope you're doing well, my friend, and you're having a nice weekend. We've also got Adam Blunston, second on the live chat this afternoon. Adam says, "Hey, old Mark, I got a question for you. Do we know how stormy can this week get?" We will look at that, Adam, in a short while. So hang fire, be patient, and we will look at the stormy prospects coming up. We're going to look at the what's going on over on the other side of the Atlantic as well. We've got the major wildfire situation ongoing in Southern California. We've also got winter storms and bitterly cold conditions that is going to take center stage of the weather news this upcoming week. We could see some record-breaking cold. We could see snow as far south as the Gulf Coast of Texas, possibly North Florida as well, up the eastern seaboard. We've got the big inauguration tomorrow. Looks as if it's the coldest since Kennedy's inauguration back in 1985. So we certainly have got a lot of things going on. We will look at the UK, Ireland, Western Europe pattern as well. So plenty of reason to stick around, and we will get into it in just a second. Thanks to Lindsay and to Paul for moderating today's stream. Good afternoon to Mum in Kirkintilloch, Joyce Fogan. Hi Mark, nice to be back again, says Joyce. We've also got Josh tuning in. Good afternoon to you, Josh. Who else have we got here? We've also got Chris tuning in from Braemar this afternoon as well. How are things over in the Strathdon area of eastern Scotland this afternoon? Certainly is turning cold out there. Minus 3.0 this morning here at the house. I think we rose to maybe about 5 or 6 this afternoon. Temperatures are very quickly falling away once again as the sun has now set. Have you noticed a little bit of a difference in terms of the daylight? I've noticed that the sun is the daylight. Right. Good afternoon to everybody, and a warm welcome to the one. There we go. I thought I'd sort that out as well, but clearly not. But yeah, I'm noticing a very, very slight difference. I also noticed that you can feel slight heat off that sun now, which is quite interesting. So obviously the power of the sun is just ever so slightly notching up, and you tend to find that the evenings start to become just a slight bit longer. I think we're gaining 2 to 4 minutes per day in terms of daylight, which is obviously welcome news. It just gives you that sense that, yeah, we're on the other side of that hill, so to speak, with regards to winter. We've obviously still got plenty of winter to come. We'll talk a little bit about the prospects going forward in terms of cold, but certainly we are seeing that slight change now in terms of the apricity, which is actually a word that I learned off the Met Office. I think it was either the deep dive. It might have been either the deep dive or the Friday afternoon live stream that they produce. and they mentioned the word apricity, and that is the feeling of warmth of the sun. And my wife Lindsay actually made mention of how just a day or so ago she could feel the warmth of the sun, and the car temperature was actually reading 15 Celsius, which is pretty darn mild for the middle portions of January. I think the maximum here at the house was 14. That was back, I think it was on Friday afternoon. Let's have a quick check and see what the current temperature here at the Mark Hogan Weather HQ is. So I would suspect it's probably dropping back below the freezing mark now that the sun is set. Yeah, we're sitting on 0.9 Celsius here in Edmonton this afternoon. Like I said, the temperature dropped to -3 this morning. What was the maximum? Let me just have a quick check of what the maximum. 6.4, not too bad. A little bit cooler than it has been of late anyway. So we've got Katrine also tuning in. We've also got Dave China tuning in. When will the UK West Midlands get snow? That is a very good question, Dave. Not in the near future, my friend. I don't think anyway. We will look at the snow models in a little while as well. I'll try and remember that. And if I happen to forget, somebody can remind me. So Braemar, Ballater, D-side and Donside weather said -7 Celsius overnight at his 4G site. And certainly it is quite a cold little nook that station is sitting at, which always makes it interesting to see just how cold the temperatures can get. Like I say, -3 this morning. Quite a difference compared to, well, we had -10.6. Then the following night was -8 with a maximum of -2. But once that milder air moved in, we did not get anywhere near freezing any time during the past week. But we're back below the freezing mark thanks to clearer skies and lighter winds. That southwesterly wind has really been keeping the temperatures up, especially up the western side of the UK and north. Staying on the chilly side, obviously, down across the majority of England and Wales. We've got Paul Farwell, we've got City Andy, we've got David, we've got Gav's Weather. Good to see Gavin tuning in this afternoon, my friend. Hope you're keeping well. Are you streaming, Gavin, at 6 p.m? I would imagine you probably are. Do check that out, everybody. I'm sure most folk that are on this stream tends to check out Gavin and his terrific channel as well. We've also got Richard Gray tuning in. Good afternoon to Richard. We've got Jace72 also tuning in. Good afternoon to Jace. We've got currently 32 people on today's live stream. So a very warm welcome if you're just joining in live from Mark Hogan Weather HQ here in Edmonton, just about 16 miles north of Inverness. Beautiful part of the world if you happen to know this area. And weather certainly is beautiful. Sun, like I say, now set. We're approaching the freezing mark. Frost is lay on the ground in areas that hasn't been exposed to the sun all day. We've also got Steffi Adcock tuning in. Good afternoon to you, Steffi. Good to see you. Hope you're well. And we've also got the Seafood and Eat It tuning in also. So we've got a big stream this afternoon. It's great to see everybody. Have you had a good week? What has your weather been like? We've got Richard saying, hi Mark, cold today on Dartmoor with fog and only +2. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Richard. So yes, lots of things going on. It looks as if we're going to turn stormy towards the second half of this upcoming work week. A lot of focus is going to be on the cold over North America, but essentially what that's doing is it's driving a stronger jet and it's going to fire up areas of low pressure, throw them our way. Now, this has been part of the forecast here on the channel for a good 10 days now, I would say. Even before the cold ended, I was saying, look out, phase 2, phase 3 of the MJO, bitterly cold air with a stretched polar vortex, dumping waves of Arctic air down over North America. That's going to then create a situation where we could have somewhat of a 2013, 2014 resemblance to it. Now, I'm not saying that that is what we're going to see. That winter, was the stormiest on record, I believe, anyway, and we had a lot of deep lows moving through. But what is interesting is, and a lot of people forget this, because of the track of those lows back in 2014, so this was like January, February 2014, the polar vortex was stretched, but it was favouring cold into North America. But because of these deep areas of low pressure dragging that cold off North America. Yes, it moderated crossing over the Atlantic, but on the north side of them lows, we actually had quite cold air. And in medium to high elevations of Scotland, we've seen massive snow build up. I'm sure Chris would remember that back in 2014. We're really seeing epic snowfall in places like Glen Shee, Cairngorm, Glencoe. We really did see a massive amount of snow building up during that winter season, despite the fact that it wasn't for the rest of the UK much of a winter. We've also got Sink Splint tuning in. Good afternoon to Sink Splint. Hope you are well. Also, it looks as if we've got pretty much a full house of moderators this afternoon. I think Lisa is meeting up with a friend from Edinburgh, so Lisa may or may not tune in, but a very big thank you to everybody for their kind support on this channel is really, really greatly appreciated. So this is the current. We'll look at the aspects regarding the United States, Europe in just a second. Let's start off by looking at the CDAS 0.5 data. You can see here that for the first 19 days of January, we are remaining colder than average across the UK and Ireland, despite the fact that we've been bouncing between 10 and 14 Celsius, even 15 Celsius for much of the past work week. And it'll be interesting to see how this month pans out. I've got average to slightly below average for the month of January. Cold first half, milder second half. The cold perhaps ended a little bit earlier than what I envisaged anyway. But remember that January forecast was put out back on Christmas Day, so you still had a full week of December to go before the monthly outlook actually kicked in. So I think it was a pretty decent forecast. And remember, the winter forecast as a whole states that we have for the 1st of January through 20th of February, that whole period, warmer than average, but we would have interludes of both mild and cold, but mild likely outdoing any cold. And that looks as if it's going to be the case in February. I did have colder than average, I think it was, if I remember right. And that looks as if that is very much in a shaky nail. And I will hold my hand up if the forecast ends up busting. It, lo and behold, did actually bust last February when I thought cold. But again, hinged a lot on stratospheric warming. We would see that taking place. If that had have occurred around Christmas time, early January, we probably would have had a different outlook for the second half of winter. But unfortunately, because there has been no SSW materialising, it doesn't look as if it's going to happen. We are likely to see the polar vortex become stronger. If you didn't already, check out the video from last night looking at the prospects going into February. Looks as if we're going to start to see the PV tighten up, and therefore the westerlies are going to crank. Now, it looks as if even North America is going to kind of ease off in the cold towards the end of this month, but certainly over the next couple of weeks, bitterly cold conditions, possible record cold at that as well. But you can see here the majority of the United States is colder than average away from the west. We've got a warmer than average Canada, including Alaska, where we had temperatures close to 50 above average, by the way. That's Fahrenheit, granted, so you have to take that into consideration. But look at these anomalies here over portions of northern Quebec, Labrador, Newfoundland, very, very warm compared to average. And then across Russia, it has been a very mild winter so far across the majority of Russia. Even such places as Yakutsk, Oymyakon, other like known cold spots, hasn't really been particularly cold this winter. You know, minus 30, minus 40 Celsius is actually warmer than average for these locations within the heart of Siberia. So anyway, let's crack on and see, is there anybody else here? So Braemar, Ballater, D-side, Doside Weather says, yeah, it was Brian. However, 2021 would take some beating. Braemar Village had 70, and I remember that very well, by the way. You recorded 70 centimeters, which I believe is somewhat record breaking in terms of snow depth for the Braemar area. I remember that very well. So Chris, yeah, that was certainly an epic time. That was my first winter up here actually, and my wife and I went. So it was minus 15 in Invergordon. Then we drove up to Kinbrace, and it was -21 Celsius that morning. And we had pretty much a week of easterly winds. We've seen the snow build up to about a foot in depth, even in places such as Invergordon, Allness, this area near sea level. We've seen some remarkable snows, and then the cold that followed that was pretty epic as well. City Andy saying, laugh out loud, -30, warmer than average. Yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous, Andy, but yeah, given how cold their average actually is, -30 is actually pretty decent for there, because I think the kids in Omnicon, for example, um, go to school until the temperature reaches -50 or colder, and then they shut school. So yeah, it just goes to show how wimpy our society has become. You get a skift of snow out in the ground, the buses can't run, then obviously everything's liability now. So one kid falls outside and they claim the school and sue and all that. That's the culture that we live in now. So I was saying this to my dad, and I've even said to Lindsay as well, that it's amazing how wimpy our society has become because of modern day um, liabilities and all that, insurances and things like that. It's just crazy. I remember you just roll your socks up, you get a nice half decent jacket on, and you just go to school, trudge through that foot and a half of snow. Schools don't shut down for anything back then, but certainly it seems to be. You get a sniff now, and it's a very, very different story. So anyway, you can see here the temperature anomalies across the planet. Large, real standout areas of warmer than average. We've got Western China remaining colder than average. Down into Southeast Asia, around Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, it looks as if we're slightly below average here. Large swathe of Saudi Arabia is actually below average, which is interesting. Northwest Africa below average. Because of that split in the jet, we've got one branch going south, one branch going north. We've seen more unsettled conditions down towards the Canaries, for example, but we've seen snow in the Atlas Mountains of Morocco in recent days, thanks to that little area of low pressure that's spun up near Tunisia. We've got largely warmer than average across the majority of Australia. Looks as if the North Island of New Zealand is actually colder than average. Remember, they're in the heart of summer now down here. But and I think the -60 in central Greenland just a couple of days ago. So that was the coldest temperatures of the winter for the northern hemisphere as a whole, which is quite interesting. So be sure to hit that like button, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. It would be much appreciated. Current temperature still 0.7 here at Marfogan Weather HQ. Let's have a quick look and see what is happening around the UK in terms of temperatures. So we are now sitting on the freezing mark or thereabouts in Altnahar. We're still bouncing between 1 and 4 between Tain and Inverness. We've got a +6 at Kinloss, and generally sixes through the central belt. And then once you get into the north of England, we've got around about the 0 mark. It looks as if we've got a couple of degrees or so above freezing. Midlands, Eastern England, Southern England, clinging on to something slightly milder, both southwest Wales and southwestern England. We've got 10 and 11 down in the southwest of Ireland. Northern Ireland generally between 6 and 8, possibly a 9 up towards Derry, for example. And then let's have a quick look and see what the temperatures are doing across Europe. And then we'll look at the temperatures in other places as well. So this is how Europe's looking. Not bad for this time of the year. Yeah, slightly chilly, but really it's nothing to write home about, let's be honest. We're talking about the continent in the middle of winter. A couple of degrees either side of the freezing mark is not really that cold. And look at even Scandinavia, a lack of cold here. And if you go back to the temperature anomaly chart here for Europe, you can see how well, it's been mild across northern portions of Europe. We've seen temperatures +7, 8 Celsius north of the Arctic Circle in recent days. So you can see the UK is still clinging on to that below average. What may be a saving grace that this month doesn't go above average is the fact that we've got this cold westerly flow going to be generated as we progress through the upcoming work week. And also the fact that we've been chilly down across England and Wales, closer to the centre of that high pressure system. We've also got the Extreme Lion tuning in. Good afternoon to Extreme Lion. Hope you're well. Have I mentioned anybody else? We've got Andy. We've got City Andy. So we've got the two Andys on this afternoon. We've got Katrine. Have I mentioned Katrine? I hope I have. If I haven't, good afternoon to Katrine. And so this is the temperature anomalies across Europe at the moment. Let's look at the temperatures across the United States and Canada and Mexico as well, because this is rather interesting to see. So this is how the North American continent is looking, and rather chilly, especially when you see these pinky colours here. So we've got, looks as if we've got a minus 44 up in the Northwest Territories region in a place called Wekwiti, I think that is. So currently minus 44. Wind chill mustn't be, there's no wind, so there's no wind chill value colder than that. But then also, even as we go down towards the northern tier of the United States, so we've got minus 27 in North Dakota, we've got a minus 29 at the icebox of the nation, as they say, at International Falls. We've also got temperatures down to minus 14 at Aurora, just to the west of Chicago, and that cold is digging all the way into Colorado as well. We've got a current temperature of minus 16.7 in Denver. Still slightly mild up the East Coast, if you notice here at Florida and up through the Carolinas. We're clinging on to some milder temperatures. That is going to change over the next few days. We've got a system that's going to ride right along the Gulf Coast. That is going to bring a mix of rain, sleet, and snow. But it wouldn't surprise me if we got 1, 2, 3 inches even in the Houston, down in the Galveston, which is right on the Gulf Coast. Then that system is going to ride that Arctic boundary here. We've got mild air getting lifted northwards. That's going to energize the front, forces an area of low pressure to develop right along that Arctic boundary, which is going to be skirting the Gulf Coast. So look at this here. Look at the temperature difference. This is why our jet stream becomes so strong. We've got plus 28, plus 29 Celsius over Cuba, while we've got temperatures close to the freezing mark in parts of central Texas, even up in Amarillo, a very cold place it can be. Even in North Texas, we've got minus 10.6. That is the low that the house read back last Saturday morning. So it just shows you, even in Texas, you can get minus 20, minus 30 Celsius, believe it or not, in North Texas. It's going to be interesting to see how cold the temperatures get. But up in Washington, where all the excitement is gathering, we're generally plus 3 Celsius at the moment. And it looks as if the temperature tomorrow at around midday, when things are kicking off in DC for the inauguration of President-elect Trump. Don't want to mention too much about politics, but nevertheless, it's an interesting event because this is likely to be the coldest inauguration of a president since 1985, according to a graphic I'll pull up here just in a sec. And this is off ABC 7 News. And it looks as if Reagan's, I said Kennedy is probably the coldest since Reagan, 1985, where the temperature was at 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Then Kennedy, 22 Celsius back in 1961. Barack Obama was 28 Celsius back in 2009. Funny enough, I was in America for the inauguration of, well, I wasn't actually at the event, obviously, but in 2009, I thought it was colder than 28. 28 Fahrenheit is about minus 2 Celsius, by the way, in case you're wondering. So it looks as if it's going to be the coldest in 40 years. They brought all the palaver that goes with it. They brought all that indoors this year because of the concern for cold. But it's a lot of the time it's not so much the air temperature that's the problem, but it's actually the wind chill that becomes a bigger factor actually in cold outbreaks in North America. I've been in Chicago in the month of February, experienced a wind chill of minus 27, I think it was, and it's just unbelievable how cold that actually can be when you've got an air temperature of minus 15, minus 16 Celsius, and then you factor in a 15, 20 mile per hour breeze on top of that, and it feels just absolutely bitterly cold. We've also got Brian A. Metz tuning in. Good afternoon to Brian. 16 Fahrenheit in Hot Springs, Montana. According to Brian. Very good afternoon. Hope you are well, my friend. Hello from Banff, says Leslie R1. Good afternoon to our North American friends. It is good to see everybody on board from the other side of the pond. And it'll be interesting to see just how cold things get over the next week or so. So these are the temperatures according to the GFS model. Air temperature in Fahrenheit for 18Z tomorrow. This is obviously Monday, 20th of January. It looks as if we've got temperatures generally hovering in the DC area in particular, anywhere from 19 to 23 Fahrenheit, which is around about what -4 to -6, -7 perhaps. We could see a good decent snowfall up the I-95 corridor. Once that system then runs up the coast, we're going to see the bitterly cold Arctic air sweep in on the backside. A massive thank you to Braemar, Ballater, Deeside and Donside Weather. A very, very kind donation from yourself. That is lovely. Thank you very much. That is very generous indeed. So thank you to yourself. We've got Dumpster 1961 tuning in from East Suffolk. There's still time for another cold snap. There certainly is. I think it would be foolish to throw in the towel with regards to winter, even though we've got the polar vortex becoming stronger. Remember, the polar vortex in some respects is one aspect. There's other aspects that can deliver, cold spells, which Arctic oscillation being negative, North Atlantic oscillation being negative. And one of the driving forces behind that could be the MJO going back towards phases 7 and 8. That's what we need, in a sense, to kind of help rebuckle the jet stream, force higher pressure to build over Greenland and over the Arctic region, and then it allows cold air to then descend into the troughs either side of these ridges that develop over the mid to high latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere. So a massive thank you for the super chat. It is very kind of you, Chris, for that. I hope I've got your name right this time, because I know a couple of weeks ago I got the name wrong. That was slightly embarrassing. I could have got myself in trouble there. Yes. Anyway, so the temperatures, like I say, are going to drop like a stone. Let's have a quick look and see what the conditions are expected according to the GFS model. So this is looking at the northeast quadrant of the United States. And this is through this evening. We've got this area of low pressure at 999 millibars just off the east coast. Obviously, you want that area of low pressure to be offshore. That allows the rain and the liquid precipitation to stay off the coast. So you're getting snowfall really anywhere from near Richmond, Virginia, up through Delaware, Maryland, into New Jersey. We're talking about the greater New York City area, Long Island, in the southern portions of upstate New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. Continue to play through. There's that system moving out of the way. Then we've got the thicknesses crashing into the 498 thickness value. Once you get below 500 thicknesses, you're talking about bona fide, bitterly cold Arctic air, and that looks as if that's going to be the case. We could be seeing temperatures close to zero in New York, for example. There's the 504 height line moving into the north side of New Jersey here. And usually that thickness value, once you get that close to the New York City area, you're talking about minimum temperatures dropping close to the zero mark. So with snow-covered ground and the Arctic air rolling in over the top, we are going to see some impressive cold numbers moving in. Now let's have another quick look and see what
the United States presidential.
I beg your pardon here. Sorry about this. Let's zoom out, because there is more to the snow prospects than just the northeastern half of the United States. So if we look at the United States as a whole, and then we look at the prospects of wintry precipitation. So this is a skip back. So you've got a system here. So this is looking over the lower 48. We've got the 486 height line over Minnesota and Wisconsin at the moment. So air temperatures are going to be well below 0 Fahrenheit, which is -18 Celsius. And what's going to happen is that cold air is going to continue to drain southwards over the United States. But you can see here, like I say, there's the Arctic boundary right along the Gulf Coast. So you can see here we've got a wintry mix down towards the Brownsville area, which is right on the border with Mexico. We've got an ice and freezing rain event possible as well for parts of South Texas. Then as that system gathers strength, we are likely to see a covering of snow. This is the system in Wednesday, by the way, moving along that Gulf Coast area. We could see some snow even into the panhandle of Florida, for example. All the while, that system then moves offshore, the Arctic air moves in, and we then have that system that refires along the Arctic boundary off the east coast. So we're going to see a mix of rain, sleet, snow, freezing rain, perhaps through the South North Carolina region. Then we're going to start to see snow moving up through Virginia and right along the I-95, according to the latest run in the GFS. Then northerly winds come in on the backside, and then we could see some of the coldest temperatures of all moving into the eastern half of the United States, especially if you've got that 1035 high that kind of almost parks in place. The winds drop off, and with that snow-covered ground, you get maximum radiational cooling. Massive thank you to Lindsay for a £2 donation. Thank you very much to you. I think a nice little balloon there, and I don't know what the 3 means exactly, but very kind anyway of you sending me that in. So yeah, let's have a quick look at the temperatures then and see what they're suggesting anyway off the GFS. We'll try and blow this up actually to make it a little bit easier to see. So let me just bear with us a second here, and then I might have to turn the light on. So yes, there we go. That's nice and clear for everybody to see. Let's get back to the current period. So this is tomorrow, and you can see here that the temperatures are crashing. So even at 18Z this evening, we've got the temperatures around -5, -6, -7 in Amarillo in the north of Texas. Once you get up into the northern tier, we've got temperatures into double figures below zero. And then as we continue to play through, you can see the pinky colours now starting to show up over parts of Canada. So the coldest air mass of the season so far, Canada, that then starts to sink its way south. And you can see here that we've got temperatures close to 30 below zero over northern portions of Minnesota as we progress through the course of tomorrow into Tuesday morning, early Tuesday morning. Some very, very cold temperatures indeed. And then as we move towards the middle portions of the week, once that system exits the East Coast, that is when the temperatures are going to crash. Now, our good friend Jesse Farrell, who is a meteorologist at AccuWeather in State College, Pennsylvania, put this interesting post up on his Facebook fan page showing some of the models. So exactly how cold could it get in parts of the eastern United States over the next several days here. So if we skip through here, you can see Jesse's post. So we've got heavy snowfall downstream of the Great Lakes, obviously strong cold northwesterly winds blowing over relatively warm waters of the Great Lakes. That means we're going to get another lake effect snow event for the Great Lakes. It's just been an epic winter for snow in this part of the country. In fact, I've actually went far too far. Sorry about that. That's old posts, but we will get some lake effect snows, I would imagine, from this event. But this is what I was trying to show you here. So this is basically the latest European model, or the ECMWF output for forecast lows next week. So the upcoming work week versus the all-time state minimum. So West Virginia, for example, had temperatures seen by the ECMWF yesterday, or was it the day before? I think it was the day before, showing temperatures down to 32 below zero Fahrenheit. And the state record is -37, so it misses out on the state record. Also, Pennsylvania, we're going to get close to 30 below, possibly in a few particularly cold locations, in central PA, but temperatures close to 30 below, but the state record, it's not going to get anywhere near that 42 below zero. And Ohio, we've got a record nowhere near that, -42. Temperatures may get close to -30 in parts of Ohio. So not really close except for West Virginia in terms of records. in temperature. So I mentioned about the snow. Let's have a look and see what the GFS is indicating in terms of snow depth. So just bear with me a little second, and we'll have a look and see what the model is indicating. So right, total snowfall. So this is obviously snowfall as opposed to snow depth, but you get the overall idea anyway. And we've got the snows likely across parts of Texas. So look at this here, this nice little swath of snow, generally from Houston and slightly north of there. Then right along the southwestern portions of Louisiana, north of New Orleans, and even in the northwestern Florida. So down towards Gulfport, across to Biloxi area, then Mobile, and then in towards the Tallahassee area of Florida. The GFS model is indicating that we may see some snow picking up. Look at that nice little swath here over North Florida. You don't often see that actually, and it's really quite interesting to see that. Then we've got a little gap over North Carolina, south portions of Virginia. Then the precip fires back up north of the mountains here, and generally over northern portions of Virginia. We could see a few inches of snow in the DC area, up through Maryland, far eastern PA, through North Jersey, into the New York City area, up through Providence, Rhode Island, Hartford, Connecticut, up into portions of the Boston area, maybe slightly to the west of the Boston area. It looks as if we are going to see a few inches of snow. Nothing epic, but nonetheless, once that carpet of white is laid down and then you get the bit of the cold air running over the top of that, we could see some impressive cold numbers for this point in the winter, coldest of the winter so far for sure. So that's the United States. Cold snow prospects coming up. I will probably do a separate video, by the way. I'm going to turn this heating back on because it's starting to get a little bit on the chilly side, I must admit. So yes, we're going to do a separate video this upcoming week with regards to the snow and cold prospects. Let's move on now and have a look. We'll look at the wildfires in a little second. So these are the current temperatures across the United States, relatively mild still across the southeast. The first of the Arctic air now drilling into the northern tier of the country. Still got +6 in New York, JFK, for example. We've got the mild temperatures even up into Nova Scotia. So temperatures are still moderately mild in this part of the country. As that cold air digs southwards, you tend to get the southwesterly winds ahead of the frontal system that generates a little bit of a warm up ahead of the cold. Let's have a quick look at the temperatures across Australia. And bear in mind, this is the heart of summer here. So we've got temperatures generally in the low 30s in western interior parts of Australia. Nothing exceptional, but then it's the time of the day as well. Remember, we've got temperatures into the teens down in the southeast of Australia and up the east coast. And reasonably uniform temperatures into the kind of low, mid to high 20s, depending on whereabouts you are in Australia. Let's move across to Brazil and see what the current temperatures are looking here. So we've got generally some pretty hot conditions. Wife and I visited beautiful Rio de Janeiro back in August. Current temperature here is 30.5 Celsius. So let me have another quick check here. Shall we talk about UK, Europe, and Ireland? Let's do that right now. So what are we going to expect over the next wee while or so? So if you look at the temperature anomalies of the GFS ensemble for the upcoming 5-day period, we're slightly below average. If you notice, this is taking us out to the 24th of January. So the upcoming 5 days is a average to slightly below average conditions here. Then if we move to the 6 to 10 day of the GFS ensemble, we've actually got slightly warmer than average across England, Wales, slightly below average across northwestern areas of Scotland, close to average over Ireland, if you notice. And then in the 11 to 15 day, we are generally slightly warmer than average. And the majority of Europe is warmer than average, if you notice as well. So the contrast in temperature over the American side of the Atlantic is going to then re-fire the jet stream. And some of the models were suggesting wind speeds in excess of 280 miles per hour within the jet core, that is going to fire up areas of low pressure. In fact, those couple of lows that I was showing you a second ago, skirting along the Gulf Coast of the United States, those areas of low pressure are going to get picked up by the jet stream, whipped across the Atlantic, and essentially could affect our shores towards the late this upcoming week and through the weekend. So if we look at the let's have a look. So this is the GFS. Let's look at the European model. So the ECMWF. Let's look at the Atlantic view, and bear with me a second. I am going to turn the light on because it's getting very dark. That's better. I can see now. Not that I really need to see, but I prefer to see. So anyway, you can see here, this is looking over the Atlantic. So on this side of the North America, that's North America, and obviously Europe, Africa. On this side of the graphic, we've got high pressure generally dominating our shores at the moment. We've got this split in the jet stream, but change is going to come as we progress through this upcoming work week, and you'll see that very clearly in a second. If we put the 850 temperature chart on here, you can see the mild plus 10 Celsius over Denmark, while on the other side of the Atlantic we've got minus 30 Celsius over Canada. So a very extreme difference in contrast. We've got southerly flow essentially on the eastern side of the Atlantic. We've got northerly flow over the United States side of the Atlantic. And obviously, because of the geography of North America, you've got a land connection with the Arctic. You then hold on to these minus 20s, minus 30 Celsius air. You don't get that on our side of the Atlantic for the simple fact that these air masses moderate as they cross over relatively warm waters. So in essence, we've got the Atlantic view, North America on one side and Europe on the other side. We've got mild conditions, southerly flow on the European side. We've got Arctic conditions on the North American side. Now, as we play through this loop, we've actually got a lobe of minus 40 Celsius, or minus 35 anyway, dropping into North Dakota, if you notice. But look at the gradient here. We've got plus 15 Celsius over the western side of Cuba, while we've got the zero line, then minus 10, minus 15, all over Georgia. That tight gradient, you find that there's a jet stream that is in between, trying to find the counterbalance here in terms of the atmosphere. Atmosphere always trying to find balance. It tries to find equilibrium. It doesn't do that, so it then drives wind to try and counteract that contrast. So if we look at the back onto, right, so we'll play through and I'll try and show you the jet in a second here. So we've got one lobe of bitterly cold air getting driven in. There's that squeeze in the temperature gradient here. So we've got that powerful jet. And then obviously that cold air is getting drawn off North America, off Canada, out over the Atlantic. And we find ourselves on generally the cold side of the jet stream, so we aren't necessarily going to find ourselves particularly mild. We've got this tongue of milder air getting driven north ahead of these areas of deep low pressure that is approaching the UK and Ireland. Notice there's quite a general consensus showing up. These areas of low pressure are going to peak and then turn north before reaching the UK and Ireland. I've noticed that with the GFS and the ECMWF, that these lows are going to turn before reaching our shores, which is a good thing, by the way, because some of these lows are very deep. Then we've got another wave, then we've got a third wave of bitterly cold air driving south over North America. That continues to then squeeze the temperature gradient, continue to fire up a strong jet stream, and therefore we will remain fairly active and fairly unsettled. So if we look back, let's have a quick look at the GFS model here and show you the strength of the jet. Now sometimes this map doesn't load up particularly quickly, so bear with it if it doesn't load for me. But you can see here with the pressure difference between Arctic air and subtropical air. There's the strong jet stream showing up. It is slow to upload, unfortunately, but you get the general idea. We've got quite a slack flow over our shores. Then we've got this very powerful jet exit in southern portions of the United States. And then what's going to happen is that's going to have an extension further eastwards over the Atlantic. And with time, we're going to start to turn much more unsettled on our side of the Atlantic basin here. So the map, unfortunately, I don't know why it does that, but it's not loading particularly well for me. But if we look at the overview chart here, you can see what's going on. So we've got like the general high pressure at the moment over the UK and Ireland. So top right hand corner, that's the UK and Ireland. We've got the areas of low pressure, one moving northwards of the UK, the other moving down towards Iberia, Northwest Africa, the Canaries, unsettled conditions here. And then this generally, as we start to see these areas of low pressure form along the Arctic boundary, along the Gulf Coast, southeastern United States, get picked up by the jet. And then you can see here the rapid cyclogenesis of these lows as they barrel towards the UK. But look at this here, 943 millibars. And I said to you it was moving north of the UK. This latest run of the GFS is indicating that that low is getting thrown our way towards the end of Friday, early Saturday, the next weekend. So I think we've got 1, 2, possibly 3 named storms before the end of this month. That is the prediction that I'm going to make. We've got 80 concurrent viewers at the moment. A massive thank you to everybody for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the content. Have you hit that subscribe button yet? It's absolutely free. Doesn't cost you a penny. So please do so if you're interested in learning a bit more about meteorology, how the weather all comes together to do what it does in our part of the world. So yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Winter is always any time of the year is amazing in terms of weather and forecast and all the different types of weather you can get. But winter in particular is much more interesting, I think, because you've got more extremes, you've got bigger storms, you've got the prospects of snow and cold, etc., etc. So yeah, but GFS indicating a 943 millibar low just off the west coast of Scotland by the time we reach midnight Friday into Saturday. So yeah, that is the first low. We've got more areas of low pressure that is going to get thrown towards the UK. Look at the mess here moving across the country. So we're going to get much more wet, windy conditions. There's another low, 942 millibars between Iceland and Scotland. This is Thursday, the 30th of January. So beyond, that's a week on Thursday, a long way off. But when you've got that phase 2, phase 3 of the MJO, you've got the bitterly cold air coming down over North America. You've got the strengthening of the jet stream over the Atlantic. This is a pattern that could become rather active and somewhat problematic in terms of if you're out and about, maybe property damage, power loss, etc., etc. We're going to need to monitor this pattern going forward. Let's have a look at the European view, and I want to show you the prospects of snow, believe it or not. Because like I said, I don't think it's going to be massively mild in terms of these lows, dragging some of that Arctic air, Canadian air, originally actually formed over Siberia, but because of the stretched nature of the polar vortex, we've got that flow from Siberia crossing over the top of the pole down into North America. You're actually, believe it or not, having recycled Siberian air that could essentially travel all the way around the northern hemisphere. Isn't that amazing to think that? The air crossing over the top of the pole, then getting driven across the Atlantic and into the UK and Ireland. Fascinating stuff. That is why I live and breathe weather, because it is just truly amazing when you think about it. But let's, anyway, back to the case in point. Sorry, I'm digressing. I'm getting carried away. I'm getting excited. So this is snow depth chart. Be interesting to see, does it sniff anything out towards the end of next week? Look at this here. Not much over Europe, granted. Let's have a look at the UK in particular and see what it's indicating. So this is obviously the GFS model, but towards the end of next week, it's printing out snow, North Wales, parts of Ireland, Northern England, Scotland as well. So we'll see if anything comes from this. But that's interesting, isn't it? And let's have a look and see what the ECMWF is showing as well. Is it showing snow? Yeah, it is. Look at this. So, yeah, severe gales, snow, blizzards, I think we're talking at least one or two named storms over the next 10 days or so. We'll wait and see what happens with regards to this. So, yeah, let's crack on anyway. Wildfires obviously been very, very devastating on the southwestern side of the United States, should I say. So bear with me a little second here. This is a live look at the active fires that are going on in California at this moment in time. So we've obviously had the Pacific Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, and this is how California is looking at the moment. So obviously we've had Santa Ana winds. What are Santa Ana winds? When you've got, in particular winter time, you get high pressure that builds over the Great Basin, over the western half of the United States, especially when you get Arctic air getting driven south into the central portion of the country. I don't know how many times when you've got snow and cold in the Midwest and the eastern side of the United States, you get Santa Ana winds and wildfires during the winter season in Southern California. So obviously geography comes into play, but obviously weather itself, high pressure builds over the Great Basin, over the high desert region. Then you've got an area of low pressure that develops off the coast of California, and winds travel from high to low pressure. And then once you start to get stronger high pressure, deeper low off the coast, you get winds generated. Those winds then blow off the high desert. So you picture this coastline, but actually you're climbing uphill to go into the desert region east of Los Angeles. What happens is these winds blow down from the high desert towards the low pressure of the coast. But geography then plays into it as well. You've got the coastal mountains, you've got the San Bernardino Mountains, you've got the trying to get my geography right here. You've obviously got the San Jacinto Mountains as well. So bear with it a second here. And look at all these active fires at the moment. So obviously these winds are very dry. They compress as they squeeze through the canyon. So you've got the big mass of the San Jacinto range east of downtown Los Angeles. The wind cannot penetrate over or through those mountains. So what they do is that the winds find gaps within the geography, the land, the topography, and the winds then get squeezed into narrow canyons and accelerate. As those winds are accelerating, they're drying out all the time, and also they're heating up through compressional warming. When it's like a bike pump, the more you pump that, the more the air is compressed. The more it compresses, the more it heats up as a consequence. That's why we have record-breaking temperatures quite often in the winter time during along the coast, because you've got those strong northeast winds blowing through the gaps, through the canyons, and obviously fires are then triggered because the air is so dry. You know, you've got a whole different reason why those fires are triggered in the first place. But then obviously when you've got the fire going, the winds then fan the flames, and unfortunately they obviously spread very, very rapidly in a high oxygen aided air mass and environment. So the winds are obviously creating more and more oxygen. So yeah, the Santa Ana winds have been particularly problematic in recent times. I did have a page opened up. Here we go. So some of the major Santa Ana fires prior to 2000, including the Santiago Canyon fire. So we've had as much as 24 deaths due to the wildfires in January 2025. We had some of the bigger fires, the 1889 Bel Air fire, we had 1969 Anaheim fire, Laguna fire, 1970 Laguna fire, 1993, and Kilauea fire in 1993. Major Santa Ana fueled fires from 2000 to 2019, including the Cedar fire in 03, the Old fire in 03, Esperanza fire in 06, Witch Creek fire in 07. I remember that very well. October 2007 was particularly devastating in parts of Southern California. Then we had the T fire in 08, the Sire fire in 08, Freeway Complex fire in 08, So obviously 2007, 2008 was a particularly bad season for Santa Ana induced fires, named major Santa Ana fuel fires from 2020 to present day. El Dorado fire in 2020, the Bobcat fire in 2020, Franklin fire in 2024. Then the Santa Ana winds heavily aggravated a series of wildfires in January 2025, including the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire during an exceptionally strong wind event. So this was, up there, hurricane force winds, like hairdryer type winds, burned as much as 35,000 acres or 14,000 hectares, and has killed upwards of 24 people. The winds aggravating the fires reached over 80 miles per hour in some areas. That's wind speeds comparable to Category 1 hurricanes. So obviously these winds are part of life in Southern California due to both weather and topography. But some of these winds can blow, especially over the higher elevations of the San Jacinto Range, for example. The San Gabriel Mountains, I believe, winds in excess of 170 miles per hour in this part of the world. So obviously this is the highest elevations to the east of Los Angeles. But this situation ongoing in Southern California, you've obviously all seen it in the news, and it has been a very, very devastating situation. It's still ongoing, and I think there is a concern this upcoming week for a refiring up of those Santa Ana winds as pressure builds over the Great Basin. You've got the load then generated on the coast, and we've got the stronger and stronger winds going to be generated in the upcoming week as the Arctic air drives south over the United States and whatnot. So let me see here what else. We've talked about the inauguration, the snow and cold prospects over parts of the United States. As a consequence, we've talked about the stormy prospects towards our part of the world in the next week to 10 days or so here. Let's have a very quick look and see what else is cooking, and then we'll close off. By the way, an interesting one here. Dan Harris of the Met Office, I had messaged him a couple of days ago asking the rise in temperature between minus 18.9 Celsius at Altahara versus 14.5, I think it was. Well, Dan said that it looks as if that may have been a record for a 3-day rise in temperature. So you're talking plus 30 Celsius rise over a 72-hour period. It looks as if that may have been a UK record for anywhere and at any time in the period of record itself. So that's quite interesting, actually. The rise in temperature possibly being a new UK record for 3 days. So I just wanted to make mention of that. But I think we've kind of covered everything. I know that time is starting to tick on. People are wanting to get their dinner and relax rather than listen to me going on and on all night. So I think I've kind of covered everything anyway. Is there anything else to speak about? This is a nice little graphic here, actually. Tropospheric polar vortex, cold air getting driven south. We've got this corridor of cyclogenesis anywhere from the central Gulf Coast up the east coast. We're going to see snow systems as a consequence of that development along the coast. But yeah, plenty of reason to stick around. I do greatly appreciate everybody's kind support over the recent weeks and months. Busy week coming up here in the channel, so stick it right here. Hit that subscribe button and also hit the notification bell as well so you don't miss any future uploads. But there'll be a video every night this upcoming week. As always, we're going to be looking at the United States. We're going to be looking at Europe and the increase in storminess. We will also talk a little bit about February as well coming up this week. We'll look at the bigger picture, polar vortex latest, Mann-Julian oscillation latest, etc., etc. So I think I've covered enough. A massive thank you to everybody. Paul, James, Sing Splint, Lindsay for moderating today's stream. As always, we've got Craigie Boy also tuning in. Craigie Boy saying, just back from the Rangers game, do you think there will be 100 mile per hour winds in Scotland. Very good question, Craig. That is a possibility, by the way. I don't want to rule anything out, and I also don't want to be guilty of hyping anything up. But there is definitely prospects there of one, a named storm, but two, destructive winds in association with those as well. So stay tuned, Craig. If you haven't already done so, my friend, hit that subscribe button. Tune in through the course of this week. We're going to be looking at how strong the winds are possibly going to be in a little bit more detail in the next couple of days here. So thanks for your question. Thanks to Jace72, Hazel Kitching. Thank you very much for tuning in, Hazel. Hope you're well. Nothing as it seems, tuning in, saying orographic warming. That is very true with regards to the mild conditions here in the UK during the past week, but also the Santa Anas in Southern California. Thanks very much to Brian for tuning in from Montana, I believe, and we also had somebody tune in from Canada as well. So a massive thank you to folks in North America for tuning in to today's live stream. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're also tuning in from the United States or Canada. We're going to be talking about the weather on your side of the pond this upcoming week. Thanks to Braemar, Ballater, D-side and Donside Weather for your kind donation, and also tune in to today's stream. We've got Katrine, we've got Jeff Clark, also City Andy and Andy, Paul James for tuning in as well, and their ongoing support with Leslie, R1, Banff in northeast Scotland. I do apologise. I thought it was Banff in Canada. So yeah, that wouldn't be myself. I didn't embarrass myself in some shape or form, but nevertheless, yeah. So anyway, I think I've covered everything. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday and your weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow around 5:30 with the European Outlook. We've got plenty of weather coming up as well, so tune in for that. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.